Welcome to another edition of Jules Voto's Photo Focus. Back in March of 2024, I bought Nikon's 135mm 1.8 Plena lens, a Z-mount lens, and I've used it extensively on my Nikon Z8. And I've done a bunch of videos on this lens in all types of situations: portraits, birds, street photography, flowers, and other things. And I said in July, in a video I did in July, that was going to be my last video on this lens. But over the Labor Day weekend, I took this lens with me on a short family vacation to North Wildwood, New Jersey, and I took it to the Hereford Inlet Lighthouse in North Wildwood, and they have a great garden there. And I shot a bunch of pictures, and that's what we're going to see now, a bunch of these pictures that were shot at the garden. And almost every single picture, there were a couple exceptions. You'll see some pictures of butterflies later. A couple of them I shot at 2.5, but everything else was shot wide open at 1.8. And I just love this lens at 1.8. Of course, that is the special thing about this lens. The image quality, the bokeh when shooting this lens wide open. It is absolutely beautiful. The color is great. The focus is great. It's very quick in autofocus. Like I said, I've used it photographing birds. It's excellent. I've used it for an engagement sitting. The focus right on the eyes, very sharp. But I was so impressed with this, and I've shot flowers before, but there was a much bigger variety of flowers at the lighthouse, and I just shot a ton of shots. Aperture priority, just kept it at 1.8. Standard picture control. My ISO varied, but in a lot of cases, it was at 64. And the lens does not have vibration reduction, but the camera does. So it does have in-body image stabilization, so you get that, so you can work with slower speeds. But I shot most of these pictures at an ISO of 64, where the quality with the Z8 at 64 is just great. And you could use that in so many more situations when you have a lens that fast. Of course, the IBIS helps too. And you got to be careful with your focus. I mean, these were all done with autofocus, all handheld, because only a little bit's going to be sharp. But the background, as you can see here, is it's just amazing. No other lens I have ever owned enabled me to get images like this. And it imparts a more artistic feel, if that's the correct terminology here. But I feel it does, because it's just it's just beautiful fall off of sharpness. And I love doing things like this where I'll focus on something in the foreground and the background goes somewhat soft. That's the lighthouse in the background here. And you can see the color on those pink flowers is just great. Another one here where I'm focused on the foreground and the background just goes, those flowers in the background were very close. And if I were shooting at a smaller aperture, it would have been too distracting. And this is a bird bath, and there was a flower just sitting in the bird bath, and it gives it like a total abstract look at 1.8. It's just magnificent, this lens. I can't say enough about it. It was expensive. I haven't used it a lot professionally, and I was kind of thinking, well, maybe I should sell it, but I can't sell it because I just love using it. I have to try to incorporate it more in my professional work. I have the 7200 2.8. I recently did an event, and I used the 7200 because it's more versatile, gives you a range of focal lengths, obviously. But here in the garden with the 135 1.8, I noticed this house, and I just focused on the flag, and it just with everything totally thrown out of focus in the foreground. And it totally isolates your subject. Now, it's a heavy lens. It weighs 2.2 pounds or 995 grams, but it focuses close to 2.7 feet or 82 centimeters. It's got 11 aperture blades. Now, I usually shoot it wide open, so that really doesn't come into play, but it does give you a nice bokeh even when you stop down. So I'm walking around the garden and I noticed this woman. There's a lifeguard boat that's on display there, for people to sit in. And I just thought this again, she was at a good distance from me, but again, the foreground is just totally thrown out of focus at 1.8. Here we are again looking at an image from another bird bath where, some leaves had fallen in, and the sharpness, the things that are that are sharp here, and there's not much because of depth of field, but the fall off is just so beautiful. Now I noticed the bike and that was chained, and there was a flower pot right behind it. So I just focused in on the flowers. And using a lens like this enables you to see things differently. You're looking at the world differently because you have that very shallow depth of field. And here's another one, a different angle of some other flowers behind that bike. And using this lens reminds me of the time when I first got my D810, which is a 36 megapixel camera, and I wanted to reshoot everything I ever shot using this camera because the quality was just so good. The dynamic range was great. I could crop considerably. And kind of the same thing with this lens. You want to revisit things you shot before because of that 1.8 aperture. I've had fast lenses in the past, 1.4s. I had a Canon manual focus 1.2, but it was difficult to keep things sharp and, in focus, I should say, because it's difficult to manually focus when you have those very wide apertures. Of course, with autofocus, it makes it easier, especially a lens like this that focuses fast. You could even use it with moving subjects. And I use single point focus for these images. I did not use continuous focus. And I just waited if there was a little bit of a breeze, and there wasn't much on this day. I could have used continuous focus if the flowers were kind of swaying a little bit, and it would have kept up. The focus, like I said, is great. And I just love doing things like this with this lens, focusing on the foreground and just letting the background go out of focus. And I mean, I guess this could have been done with a manual focus lens. I probably would have had the camera on a tripod, however, so that reduces your ability to move around quickly. And I just prefer hand holding the camera. And when you have such accurate focus, you can do that. And any thought that I was having of possibly selling this lens went out the window after shooting these pictures at the Lighthouse Garden. And this butterfly, I just kept the lens at 1.8 and they're sharp. Now, in the past, you always stopped your lens down a little bit to get maximum sharpness. The old rule was 2 or 3 stops down from wide open, but not with this lens, and not with a lot of modern lenses. They're really sharp, wide open, and that's great. So you could really isolate your subjects. Now here's another butterfly. I was above this one, shooting down. And it's not entirely in focus. You notice on the left side, the wing is out. So I guess I should have stopped down a little bit. But I just wanted to see, once I saw these butterflies, and I wasn't expecting butterflies, to see what I could do at wide open at 1.8. I believe this one is one of the few that the lens was stopped down a little bit. It was at 2.5. And the lens remains sharp throughout the aperture range. But like I said, I mostly shoot this at 1.8. I paid a lot of money for this lens, for a 1.8 lens. I'm going to shoot it at 1.8. So the title of this video is what I think of the Nikon 135mm 1.8 Plena after 7 months. And I think it's just as great as I thought it was when I first got it. I will never part with this lens, and I'm going to keep using it every chance I can. I do some medical conferences, and next time I do one, will be sure to bring this lens. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. And if you have any questions or comments on this video, please leave them in the comments below. I always try to respond to all questions or comments. I publish a new video every Monday morning and Wednesday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. So I will talk to you next time.